Before the season, you said save your predictions, burn your assumptions, and I think we're going to make progress this year. I'm confident we are, and we are going to be a better team at the end of the year. You said that after Chet got hurt. What made you so confident that you guys were going to be better?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, the age of the team, right? You have a young team. That there's going to be improvement from that. As long as you can stay open and less judgmental and observe it as it's happening, you'll see some progress. You may not get the results you want right away, but you could see that was going to happen. The other thing is that, the things that were put in place in the previous 2 seasons, we're scaling up to be able to see some benefits of that eventually. And so I was confident maybe more in the work that was done the previous 2 years than I was in that particular year, because I'm not ever going to predict what's going to happen. I've done this long enough to know that no one can do that. I'm happy to let other people pretend that they can. I know I can't do that. So I'm never putting myself in that position. I've had players I thought were going to be good that have turned out not to be good. I had players that I didn't think would be good that turned out to be good. We're all guessing to a degree, right? So I wasn't coming across saying I thought we'd be a better team. I didn't know how that would manifest itself.
Sam, you mentioned physicality and nasty. Is that maybe the number one priority in either through the draft or any other acquisition form for you guys as an organization?
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say that when I'm talking about that stuff, a lot of times you say physicality, people probably on our team think immediately of Lou or Jay Will. But Isaiah Joe plays physical. So physicality is about what you're bringing to the game as a competitor and whether or not you're putting yourself, the opponent's feeling you, right? And look, we know how we've all seen the NBA work for years. Young teams are going to have to fight a little harder to get the things that we want to get. That's fine. There's no victims here, right? There's no victim. We got to be a little more physical, a little nastier at different situations to be the level team we want to be. So it's more about disposition, I think, than anything. And we made great strides in that. But you're not going to get all the way where you need to go. But as the games get more amplified, your physicality needs to continue to become more amplified. And that's like that's a statement in totality, not like one person or anything like that.
In 3 years, Coach Daigneault goes from G League coach to runner-up for Coach of the Year. What does it mean to see him recognized in this way, and what stands out to you about how he got to this point?
Good. I was going to go to the how, because that's, it's nice that he got recognized. I think it's more important to understand like the why behind it. I'm happy for him that people are seeing, especially his peers, are seeing the things that he's doing that are effective. Again, I'd say that a lot of the benefits of the year were maybe in his first and second years. There's a lot of really good things that were being implemented that I think are scaling, that can be scaled at this point. And that's why we were so focused and intentional during those years, even though it seemed maybe like we weren't. And that you got to give him the credit for that, because he was able to put those things in place during a period of time where we weren't getting a lot of results, But if you think about the coaches that in the world, when you think of coaches, they're generally thinking in sequence like that. The ones that we, mentally go to in our mind when you think about coaches. So I think he's a good sequential thinker. Obviously, he's got good relationships with the guys. But I mentioned this right after we hired him, and I always laugh because when we remember it took a little while to get through that. and everyone was very concerned like, about how long the search was taking. It was a big topic. The thing about it is he's kind of been here. So he's new to so many people, but I've known him since he's like 26 or 5, because I used to go to Florida and I can remember calling Billy Donovan and asking permission to hire Mark. And I remember interviewing him at Vast, as a matter of fact, and having dinner with him there. I mean, I'm just happy for him. He loves what he does. I think he does a great job. And I think that he speaks the language and is totally aligned with the organization, which I think helps amplify a lot of different aspects of the team. And I think the team is personifying a lot of the values that we hold as a program.
Sam, expectations for the team were pretty low coming into this season, and the team far exceeded them. Now going into next season, it feels like the expectations are much higher. What's your thoughts on that?
Same as I said before, we don't really get ourselves lost in those. If we did last year, I don't, why would we bother coming in to work? The one thing I do think relative to the expectations next year, and I understand that we don't control those. I do think that we still have to remember, as many great things has happened this year, we still have to finish our breakfast around here and understand that we're not a 500 team. So the season is, say, 6 or 7 months long. We had 2 really good months where we played exceptionally well. But we didn't play consistently well the entire. Now, no team's going to do that, as I said before. The sky's going to fall on everybody. But can we be more consistent with our best play? Would be a great step for us. But we're not a 500 team. And I think we have the makings of a team that can be good. I also think that we squeeze a lot of improvement into one season, from 20 games to 40 games. Usually it's a 20, 30. So we're stealing from the future in some way, probably a little bit. So we just have to be at ease with that and understand that. That's not going to change the process we're in. It's not going to say that we're not going to ultimately achieve what we want to achieve. But we do have to kind of understand that there's a lot of work to do. I could go into detail as to like all the different facts as to why that might be the case, but I think everybody understands that we didn't win half our games.
The play tournament's been around for a few years, but this is the first time you guys have participated. What are your just overall thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, I think it's a good experience. It's hard. Well, so it's hard because you have a personal experience and then you have like the overall experience. I think it's good for the league. I understand why they did it. I was totally supportive of that when they decided to do it. Makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels. For us, I thought it was excellent, but probably not more valuable, but on par with the actual game we played was the last 10 games of the season that we were, like I said, there's conscious discomfort, right? I think that's good. I think it's very hard. I think probably from the outside looking in, there's trepidation. I was like drinking that up because you can to observe how we're performing and preparing in these types of situations. Even if we didn't play our best at certain times, we have to go through that. Very rarely, in my experience in the NBA, just a team just like knife through butter all the way to their goals. It just doesn't work that way. So the fact that we were in those situations and there were some stakes, but most of all, we stuck to kind of the mindset that we had initiated from the start of the season to the end. And it got us there. I would be less excited if we started to make all kinds of sacrifices and compromises in order to get there after putting ourselves in such a good position to have a chance, So I think it's the way we managed through it. That was the best part of it. And the games themselves were great. It's not a series, so you got to get that through your mind. Like, the preparation is much different, and this is something we had to go through. I never experienced it before, but a series is a completely different beast, and this is unfortunately it's really a tournament of randomness, and you got to live with that. But that's what makes it exciting too. We could have very easily, found our way through that. It wasn't meant to be, but I think we'll get a lot out of it.
Everyone's up.
Was there a moment or a stretch of time when you told that story last year about how when Shea was in the gym the night Russ was traded, how that sort of, you're going to remember that if he turns into something special. Obviously he's done that. Was there a moment when you knew that he could be this kind of player, like first team All-NBA caliber?
Like one specific?
Or, I mean, yeah, if you've got it, but like...
No, I don't. I don't really have one like that. I think I remember a couple things about him, but I don't think they're necessarily going to lead to this particular question. But my biggest recollections are, one, going to see Kentucky that year. Oh, I saw them a lot because they have so many players. You know what I mean? And I just remember consistently walking away like, the guy with the hair, he had his kind of I was like, he's in the paint a lot. I just kind of but he wasn't starting. So it was kind of beat me down over time. And then the other was his first scrimmage here. We were in the blue practice facility because we were redoing the floor here. And I happened to be walking along the baseline of one of the baselines to go to talk to somebody, and the guys were playing. CP was here. It was that group. It was the first time that group had ever been together, and he made a finish that was, I thought, pretty unique. I was like, oh, well, that caught my attention, but it wasn't, this guy's going to be an all-star player. That wasn't it. It was that there's tools there. That's different. That was different. When I can't remember how old I was, but one day I was driving along and my phone rang. It was Jerry Krause. And he was older and he was not in great health. But I did not know him. He asked me to come up to his house in Chicago. I feel comfortable telling this story now. Obviously, he's passed away, so I went to his house and we just sat together. He had a lot of questions for me, and I did not know him. He just wanted to talk ball, right, and scouting. And he was telling me, he's like, "Have you ever?" This guy was a baseball scout too, and he took it so serious. And he was talking about these. He called them electric moments when you're scouting a player, where you see something, it's a glimpse of something, and you're you stand up and you look around and go, I hope no one else saw that. He's got great stories, and because he's watched a lot of players and done a lot of things, and I think I do kind of understand what he's saying with that. So when Shea made that finish, it was a bit of a buzz, something's going on here, and then you keep doing the rest of your stuff, but that doesn't mean he's going to be. I thought he was going to be this great player, and I never want to act like we had some great idea that he was going to. You observe, you watch, you support, you try to create conditions for the players, and I think you challenge. And I do think that's one thing that sometimes in the league today is missing, is because the playbook in so many ways is to pit the player against the team. In a lot of ways. People are not challenging, and I think I don't think that's a relationship. I think a relationship can't be built on appeasement. No, at least no relationship that I've seen be successful that way. I think you have to be open. You have to work together. You have to challenge and continually raise the bar. And I think that's the best thing about Shea is like he responds well to that, you know. And in the world today, I think it's like the player is a victim of something or the team is a victim, and it's like when you're in a relationship, you're together in that. You work through things together, and you have to talk about that stuff together. And you might disagree about things, but like you got to have the basis of that. And it starts to me with these great players; they all want to be challenged. And I think as soon as you are fearful of that, you can't help them get better. And in my mind, what we need to do as an organization all the time is how do we best serve the players? That doesn't mean fluffy pancakes and car washes. That means how do we help them achieve like their potential and what they want out of it? And sometimes there's friction in that. But, you know, I think the playbook today, like I said before, is to try to pit everyone against each other. And like the best organizations, I think, take that divide or whatever's being, and they squash it. And so I don't know how I got onto that, but I was just thinking about Shea, and like he's so great because he I think wants that. You know, the big thing with him is, you know, he's got to be a two-way player to be great. He's got to be, and he took huge strides in that. But he's got to play both sides, and if he becomes a great defender, that's a problem for other people, you know. So I'm really excited to just observe how he continues to improve, and then how we can continue to help him, you know, explore his potential. But you got to do that together.
Yeah, you might have just answered a follow-up I had, but it was he's come back every year a better player.
Yeah.
And he's talked about how much he works in the offseason. Is it kind of that continued improvement on the defensive end that you're looking for, that he could sort of build upon next year? How could he even be better than he was this year?
I mean, when you have players like that, the better you are, the more ways there are to get better. And so I think there's a lot of room for him to improve. He's so young. So, but things will come. I think that's one other thing about player development is you got to let it happen a little bit too. So I've become fascinated by two things, like editors and music producers. So I read this book about Max Perkins, the editor, and it was awesome because it helps you understand, like, he's helping these tremendous talents, you know, F. Scott Fitzgerald and many others. And it's hard to tell them when something isn't to their level, right? But necessary. And when you have someone that's that talented, there's more coming. There's more in the stew that you can then be more critical of. But the best ones are like, give me more. But you can't do it all at once. So he's going to there'll be certain layers, as my guess, we'll work on with him, and he'll figure out what he wants to achieve. But you have to understand, what do they want out of it? And like, what do you want? And you can't be dictatorial. I think, you know, we've learned that over time. And so he'll come back a better player. I just think defensively, if he continues to progress this way, it can make him it's another dimension.
Everyone talks about culture, and that was really evident a couple days ago with the end of season interviews, and really the last few years too. Can you kind of just talk about that dynamic?
Yeah, so I think we've been fortunate, obviously, over the years in that respect. I think that word is like just absolutely abused today. I think it's more environment than it is culture. I don't know. I guess everyone's definition could be different, but I think environment is better because environments change. I think as good as it is here, in terms of like what you're describing, everybody's happy. It seemed like that at least, but you know, not everybody's happy, but they, you know, they know it's good. The one thing about it that I have always thought about, and I've said this recently to our leadership team here, is cultures or environments, they're not static. So we've had tough times with that. like environmentally, like that. I think every single situation would have that. I think a lot of times when the team is winning at a high level, their best environmental days are usually prior to that, because I think there's a huge difference between a culture of winning and a culture where you can win. And we've always focused on, like, trying to create the best environment for people to be their best selves. But that gets stressed sometimes when you're in an environment like pro sports. Like, it's not going to be perfect all the time. And I think when you realize that it can ebb and flow at times. So yeah, right now I would agree with you, Nick. Like, the environment's pretty good. The guys are great. But it doesn't mean we own that, because there's going to be periods where that gets stressed. That doesn't mean you have a bad culture. It means the culture is going through a test of some kind. And I think if you have the right principles, if you have the right ingredients and the right people, you can regrow out of that. Even in times where it seems like, man, like, this is not the way it was. Nothing's the way it was. It doesn't go that way. So we'll be tested. There'll be tough times. If we have the right group and the right temperament, we'll survive that. We'll be stronger for it. Like I said, the sky falls twice a year on every team. And you get better as you go through that. And I just think the same thing about environment. It's not, we like to say, well, these people have a great environment. We tend to say that about teams that are winning. Right? But it's much deeper than that, in my opinion. And it can go to any business, industry. There's teams that could be winning, but they may not have a great environment. But you don't own it. You try to do your best to curate it, keep it, but it's going to go through tough times, and we've had that ourselves. And I don't want to act like everything's perfect. It isn't. But I do think that over the course of time, you can get it right most of the time, but that doesn't mean that you own this pretty little picture. That's not human. I don't think that's human. If it looks like that, then I think it's actually their biggest indicator. If they haven't had tough times, there's something else going on. It's the Truman Show. So,
kind of follow up on that. We talked about drafting the people over the player, and it doesn't seem like that's played out more than it played out this year, especially considering how young the team is and how they could have let their personal agendas get in the way, especially because this is the time that kind of shapes their career. So how pleased were you to see that play out that much because they talked about how close they are all year?
I mean, it's impressive. I have to say, I think their ability to think for themselves is very, very impressive. I think they're aligned towards wanting to achieve team goals. That doesn't mean individual goals aren't very important. They are for everybody. Ambition's important. It just can't overtake the meta goal of team success. And so, the thing I'm happy about is that a lot of guys did get recognized, right, as a result of those priorities. When we talk about those things openly, and which I think is important, the risk is somebody doesn't get what they want, and nobody really gets what they want. But I thought guys were recognized for their contributions, and I'd like to think it was a result because they served the team, and that's one of the things. Serving the game, serving the team, making the play that's in front of them naturally. And I think that if that continues to become more and more part of our ethos, it only makes the team better. And that's the best basketball. The best basketball is when things are synchronized. You can't get that all the time, though. Nobody plays 48 minutes. But if you watch really good teams, they have these pockets of that where the best versions of them, like I said before, and everybody understands their function. No one's trying to redefine it or expand it. It's really fun to watch. And you can see it's also very fun to play. And so, but that's a hard thing to do in any sport, because everyone's a person, and you have to manage all these other things. But they've done a nice job with that. They deserve a lot of credit, but they're going to have to. We all are going to have to double down on. Okay, this is kind of where it's at for us to be at our best.
What did you learn this year about Josh Giddey?
Oof. I mean, a lot. Age is a number. Age is a number. There's one play that stuck out to me this year with him. And I know when everyone thinks, we talk about him, it's going to be some wizard pass or something. It's not. Because I think that when he's at his best, he serves the game, and he's able, because of his abilities, he's able to impact the game in a lot of ways. We're playing Chicago. It was the very end of the game. I can't remember the possession. I was kind of watching. I was at a college game. So I was kind of breaking the rule and kind of looking. It was a close game, so I was kind of looking at the game. Big possession, huge possession. He holds off Pat Williams and gets the ball, and I think we may have got fouled and gone to the free throw line after that and closed the game out. But that rebound was a winning rebound. That was a free-for-all play, and that was a nasty play, and he held him off. And those are the plays that serve the game that you make, but not a lot of people will probably write about them or tweet about them or highlight them or whatever. That was a big play. I was impressed by that. Just the strength to be able to do that and to understand the importance of that possession, and come through like that. Had another one. God, I'm really bad at this. Tracking down that jump ball, that Lou one. That's a winning play. He doesn't get a stat for it, but that those are the things. Being 6'9" helps, and with really good instincts, that's a good combination.
It appears Chet's recovery is going well, trending well. What are his plans in the offseason?
Just keep progressing. We want him to keep progressing, see how he continues to do. He's moving into 5-on-5 play. So he's in a good spot. We just don't want to, obviously get ahead of ourselves. We have no reason to do that. But I think he's in a great spot in terms of what he's been able to accomplish. Again, I think everybody learned a lot this season. Like I said, that's the key to the year for us, is the rate of learning. But for him, he learned a ton because you're going from just the day-to-day approach that's necessary to come back from something like that is one thing. Walking into a building where you're seeing everything else that you want happen in front of you every day and still stay that consistent, not many people do that. I feel good about that one. He's got a mind that's different on that level. We're gonna have to do a lot of work on, eat the bread in slices, not the whole loaf at one time. Build the house slowly, because he's so driven. But that's a good thing to have to help cultivate over time. It's possible. We'll see when we get to that point. If he's at that point where we feel good about making that decision, I wouldn't say he wouldn't. It's very possible that he does, but he's got a lot of time before now and then. He'll want to play for sure because he'll play anywhere, anytime. It's just a matter of if it's the right thing for him physically at that point. The other thing I just add about that is the hardest thing in my experience with these jobs that I've encountered are the injuries. And I don't mean the what they do to the team, but for the players. It's just I've been in too many doctors' offices, too many exam rooms, and when these guys go down with injuries, I wish people could see the devastation, how much these guys care. I mean, they're really warriors. These guys are warriors. they are warriors. And so when one of them is taken out of their ability to do that, man, it's a crusher for me. Like that's the hardest thing I've probably had is I don't do well with that.